Welcome back to Thompson's Coins. Today we're taking a look at some really cool new things from Agoro, as well as what came through the shop this week. To start off, let's take a look at some very unusual bundles of old Australian banknotes. You may recognise this 1969 $1 bundle of notes from a previous video. It's quite nice to have things go out of the store and then come back in order to trade up for other items and things of that nature. And that's precisely what's happened with this bundle. So I'm delighted to be able to offer this bundle once again. In addition to that, I have another bundle of 100 notes. These are $10 notes from 1991. So this is a Fraser Cole signature combination. And again, really unusual to see not only the early dollar notes, these are the early Commonwealth of Australia notes. This is anything pre, I think it's 1972. We'll have the Commonwealth of Australia at the top there. After that, it went to just Australia, and having larger denominations is also something that's quite unusual when you're talking about complete and intact bundles of 100. These are the types of things that I imagine more often than not, and in the examples that I've been able to handle them, they've come directly from people who have a direct connection to a bank. Either they themselves or a family member were either a bank teller or a bank manager, and you must have had incredible discipline to be able to hold on to this sort of sum of cash, because just in face value, we're talking, well, 100 times 10, so $1,000 just in face value back in 1991. To put that aside and not touch it for that amount of time is incredibly impressive. And I must say as well, a little disappointing to have put it aside for that amount of time and not seen the sort of capital growth that you would have seen in just about anything else. If you look at gold, silver, real estate, things like that, you've seen significantly more growth since 1991. But nonetheless, it's a really interesting, tangible piece of Australian banknote history. Next up, we have some of the new releases from Agoro. So I guess I've said it before, I may have said it before, but I feel like what they're really doing is reintegrating fun into collecting. There's so many different childhood memories that get tied into the items that they're producing, and I think that this batch of releases is a great example of just that. We have a really innovative and interesting product here. This is a Fantasia celebratory release, and it has a 5-gram silver foil with the image of Mickey there with all the stars. It also has a 1-ounce silver as well. So you've got two different items in one nifty package. I haven't opened it, I don't know how it opens. Oh, here we go. Opens out like that, and there you have it. I think things like these make for a really nice display, and it's not really a small market when you're talking about Mickey Mouse enthusiasts. So I think that something like this will be incredibly popular, and you also have a limited production of just 1,000. And also, I'll preface the rest of these releases with, I believe they're all mintages of 1,000. So for anyone that's curious about the quantity being produced, these are all 1,000 minted runs. Next, we have the new installment in the Winnie the Pooh series. You may remember this series. So we looked at the first installment, which was just Pooh Bear by himself with a honey pot. And now you have the whole gang. You've got Eeyore, Tigger, and Piglet, as well as Winnie the Pooh there in the center. And he's also got his little honey pot as well. Who would have thought? And again, just another inspirational Winnie the Pooh quote on the back. A day without friends is like a pot without a single drop of honey left inside. Couldn't agree more. Then we have Buzz and Woody. These are Toy Story themed coins, and they slide out. So you've got Buzz there, Buzz Lightyear, and then we have Woody, Sheriff Woody. I've just also noticed that the planchet, so the shape of the coin is like his sheriff badge. And I wonder what, I didn't actually have a good look at Buzz Lightyear's. Oh, okay, so it's I think it's the Star Command emblem. I think that's the emblem that he has on his shoulder. That's actually quite clever. Clever use of integrating their respective emblems onto the planchets. Then we have the new installment in the Looney Tunes series. We have Sylvester and Tweety. So the lovable cat and bird combination. And again, I've said it before, I really like this planchet being long and rectangular. It almost has, and I wonder if this is part of the intention. I'll have to speak to the guys that produced these, I wonder if the intention of this design is to be somewhat of a throwback to a comic cell, or like not a cell, like the panels on comic books as they appeared, having that long rectangular shape. It allows you to have quite a bit of the design in there. So yeah, I quite like this series, and I think, well, I know that they're incredibly popular all over the world. And again, with only a mintage of 1,000, it's a type of thing that I don't really get deep down the rabbit hole of speculating, but things like these are always going to be popular. So I can see down the track a lot of these being quite popular and difficult to get your hands on in years to come. But that's neither here nor there. That's just one person's opinion. Then finally, to round out this Agoro release, we have the Ren and Stimpy coin. Certainly the most unusual and strange animated cartoon I've ever seen in my life. Really unusual. I remember seeing it as a kid, and even then wondering how this was a kids show, and rewatching some of the clips online of this particular show really did remind me that it was an unusual time in the 90s when Ren and Stimpy was on the airwaves, and it says, "Hey Ren, hey Stimpy, happy happy, joy joy," and they're doing their iconic butt bump greeting there as well. So any fans of unusual animated television series will be very familiar with Ren and Stimpy, and you can celebrate it in silver as well. Speaking of silver, two more things that I'll highlight, and then I'm going to get a coffee and start the day. We have a 1999 Australian Kookaburra silver bullion coin set with European currencies privy marks. So this was a time where the Perth Mint were really going hard on the idea of adding privy marks to the Kookaburra coins. And these sets I think are quite interesting in the sense that you are then able to celebrate a number of different currencies from all over the world, but you're still actively collecting the silver Kookaburra series. So let's have a quick look at these, and then I've got two very cool vintage kilos of silver to give you a look at. As is often the case, the outer box, the sort of leatherette case, has seen better days. This one's in reasonable condition, but there's always a bit of sort of toning that occurs over the years with these sets. And the booklet itself is actually quite nice. There's a lot of information here. You've got all of the different currency privy marks, and you've got Germany, Austria, Luxembourg, Netherlands, Belgium, Finland, France, Italy, Spain, Portugal, and even an Irish privy mark. And then as the folder progresses, it has a little bit of a write-up on each of the currencies that are being depicted in the privy mark. For anyone that's unfamiliar with a privy mark or has no idea what I'm talking about, these are the small circular marks that appear in the left quartile of each of these Kookaburra coins, and each of them was done, as the set suggests, to celebrate a different European currency, and it's something that makes for an interesting and unique set in my opinion, and also a really nice display piece. Sets like these really look great in the display cabinets, and it's something that is always a little bittersweet when people come in and pick up sets like these, because whilst obviously running a business, it's nice to sell things, but it's always a little sad to see my displays go, and then I guess in another sense it then creates a new gap for a new interesting display piece. But nonetheless, I do really enjoy having sets like these in the store because they also make for a really nice conversation piece. Even with bullion collectors that are unfamiliar with the privy mark options, it's something that it's a bit of a hybrid. It allows people that are interested in low mintage, unique coins to have something that's sort of that nature. But then if you're purely interested in accumulating silver for the sake of having silver, you still get a decent chunk of that as well. There's 11 ounces in total in this set, but then you do have a little bit of a premium to pay because you are getting something that is comparatively low mintage and in a unique presentation box as well. Now to round out the video, I couldn't resist. This came in the other day and a lady wandered in and said, I paid about $400 each for these back in the 1970s, and she decided to cash them in. And this is the original box that they came in. So you've got, this was probably a much whiter color before it went all yellow. But these are the original bags that they were in. Now, for anyone that's unfamiliar, ABC, the Australian Bullion Company, are a very prolific bullion company in Australia, and these are considered to be vintage bars. These are a matching pair, and as I say, the lady originally paid somewhere in the order of $400 each for these. Given that the price of silver has increased significantly, she was delighted with the windfall that came her way. And I was also delighted to have a matching pair of vintage bars to display in the store, because as I mentioned earlier with the Kookaburra Privy Mark set, things like these, not only do they make for an interesting talking point, they make for a very nice display piece. And having the original bags, and I would speculate that originally these bags possibly had smaller items, either other smaller pieces of silver or even gold in them, because as you'll see, they're not actually big enough to completely cover the bar. And that's also, like, you can tell that these haven't been moved from the point of storage since originally being purchased, because you can see that the toning actually reflects the edges peeking out from these bags that they were stored in. So I think that's really cool to not only see the evidence of toning over the years, but also to have all of the original packaging, so you can actually clearly see how that happened and also why that happened. There you go, that was a little bit of everything this week. We had some old bundles of Australian paper banknotes, some new Agoro releases from all sorts of different films and television shows, some bullion coins with interesting privy marks from all over the world, and then to cap it off, some vintage Australian bullion. I don't know what more you could ask for in a video, a weekly update, but I think this has been a pretty interesting week. There's been a bit of all sorts. I've thoroughly enjoyed myself, and I hope you enjoyed coming along and checking out some of the things that came through the shop this week. If you enjoy collecting, the greatest hobby in the world, you can come on down and visit us in person. We're at Shop 8 in the Boronia Mall, which is 50 Dorset Square in Boronia. We're open from Tuesdays till Fridays, 10 till 4, and we're even here on Saturdays from 10 till 3. Let me know what your favourite item was in this week's highlight. It's time to go and get a coffee and start the day. I hope you have a lovely weekend, and we'll see you soon.